Hello friends, welcome to my channel Sushant Chess Spice. Today we are looking at the next topic, that is the creation of open file. In my earlier lessons when we did game study, I had discussed what we do after the file is opened, or we have taken some cases where sacrifice is used to open the file. Today we are going to look at simple and positional means by which we create an open file, because one of the most important positional factor is the activation of rooks, and rooks like the open file. Once we understand how to open the file, next step would be to get control of the open file by our rooks, and after the rook is coming to the open file, then next it wants the 7th rank. So we go to next stages, but the first stage is how to get an open file. So one of the simplest way to get an open file is exchange of pawns in the center. So pawn takes pawn, and white gets the rook to c1. This is a fairly simple case. We are not going to go into too much detail. The fight is going to take on the open file. Black played rook c8, and here white has many means. He can play the move rook c5. And after rook c5, dc5, try to gain a pawn majority on the queen side. And we will see that black pawn on d5 will be slightly weak. Of course, after rook c5, we see that black may play rook d8, but then see after the move rook d8, rook f c1. And after rook c5, the only open file will fall into white's control. This is going to be our next step. But today's my objective is to show you how we get the open file. Let's look at the next example here. Here also white can open the file in two ways. The reason for me to show you this example is we will try to focus on the concept of opening the file, and we'll see that how many methods are there. See, one is the move e5. After e5, d into e5, almost forced, when rook comes to e5 and white is able to get control of either the e7 or the d7 square. For example, if now rook e8, then rook e8, knight e8, and the rook enters d7. Again, white opted for the second way. So the second method is, if we are unable to exchange the pawn, we place a piece in the center and we place it ahead so that piece becomes annoying to the opponent. Opponent captures it with his piece and we recover it with a pawn, thereby getting an open file. Now for instance, this knight attacks c7, the knight threatens to double the pawn on f6, and we see that rook c8 here fails to an e7 check, c6 fails to knight f6, gf6, rook d6. So black played knight into d5, and after ed5, we see that because of this battery placed rook, white's rook on e1 entered e7, and the other rook came from e1, and white got a decent advantage in the position. So this is the second way of getting the open file. We trade pieces, then we recapture with the pawn, and the pawn's movement allows opening of the file. So these two are the main methods when we talk about positional thing. There are some tactical methods which we discussed before. We sacrifice the piece to open the file. That is another way which is possible. So let's go into more details of these two factors. Let's look at the next position here. This is a fairly simple position from a Geico piano, and what we see here, white wants black to take bishop e3. So if bishop e3 is taken, then fe3, and the rook will get open file easily. So of course black didn't do be3 in the game. You can check out my previous games. When I started game study, opening and development, in that I have covered what happens if bishop into e3 is taken. So in this game, black played bishop b6. Now if white takes bishop into b6, then b6, and the black rook will be opened. So white continues normal development. White played qd2, black went castle, and now white went long castle. Things look roughly equal here. Black can perhaps play the move bishop e6, but he was much worried about after b6 if bg5, then ND5 can be somewhat annoying, and he played the move H6. See, generally move like H6 can allow instant tactics. When we talk about opening of file, we see piece sacrifice, which I was mentioning just now in the previous position. We see that after this QH6, this position looks pretty good, but maybe black can hold on with the move knight H7, stopping NG5, and this time NG5 allows QG5, black wants to go QF6. Still I would say white has some play after QG6, King H8, BF7 over there. In the game, white chose another method. White played the move H3, and soon black found himself struggling after G4, G5, because black has moved his pawn near his own king, okay, which has weakened the position of the king also, and which has made the square G6 and G5 both easily accessible to white. So G4, G5, HG will allow the opening of the rook file, which black will not be able to stop for very long. For instance, if any move like B6 is played, white can perhaps go instant G4, allowing bishop C4, DC4, and we see that G5 is going to come by force. Hardly there is any way to stop G5. White can also do bishop B3 first, and then go G4 followed by G5, which would be somewhat safer. And this would be the simple way here again. We trade pawns to open the file in front of the opponent king. This will lead to a kingside attack. Let's look at one more position. We see typical positional play taking place because of the control of open file. Let's look at the last position here. It is black to play. It is a very famous game position. White, we can see, is struggling. His pieces are all cramped and they have not managed to cross the 6th rank. So white's pieces are badly placed. And black, who has superior pieces, we can see both bishops nicely eyeing the diagonals. The knights can come to the center. One knight is already in the center. And here black did something strange. See, the side with inferior pieces wants to trade the pieces. White is quite desperate here to trade the pieces, and black went with that and allowed white to exchange a lot of pieces. But for what? Let's see. Black went ND4, to which white quickly fell into knight into D4, because his pieces are all cramped, and we know as a rule, side with inferior pieces, he tries to trade the pieces. So CD4, knight into D4. This CD4 is a very important moment when we learned that by placing the piece in the center, we force the opponent to take, and when the pawn captures, we get control of the open file. So after QD5, threatening mate on G2 forces another exchange, when after QD7, bishop into B7 and QB7. So as the rule says, what remains on the board is more important than what goes out of the board. So what white saw now, that black's rooks are now going to occupy D8 and C8 squares. C2 will come under fire, and if he is not playing C4 at the right moment, then this C2 pawn has to be defended throughout the game. Let's say black plays any move like BD2 now, and once there is rook C8 and doubling of rooks taking place, white will only have to defend the squares. Okay. In fact, rook D8 is very interesting, because now after C4, DC3, BC3, rook into D3 will be hanky, and white will miss out on the opportunity to play C4. So white had to play the move C4, when after D into C3, B into C3, black got both the open files, and both rooks started attacking the pawns and forced the pawns to move in such a way that this C1 bishop became really bad. So this is how we are able to create opening of the file. Of course, I am going to do this game in much more detail in our upcoming lessons. So today's chapter was a small one, but I felt very important one, because first we should know what are the methods of opening the file, and then we should know how to use the open file. Then for using the open file, we need to snatch the open file from the opponent's control. And then finally, when we get full control of the open file, how to exploit it and convert it into a winning position. So I hope you are enjoying these lessons. Do like, share and subscribe the channel. Thanks for your time.